Welcome back. This is our last episode of Civil Discourse Now on beautiful August 18th, 2012. I'm Mark Small.
I'm Paul Ogden.
Paul, we've been talking about privatization. You were once a privatizing person.
I wouldn't say I'm totally always think it's a bad idea. There's certain things that would be could be privatized if done the right way.
Privateer?
Privateer. For example, a person that walks around and collects money on the parking meters, you could privatize that. I'm not sure about giving them the authority to write tickets, so I'm a little uncomfortable with that. But there are certain small functions like photocopying, jobs and things like that you could privatize. But you got to keep the contracts short, and you have to have oversight. And too often we haven't had that.
Well, and by making the contracts long and getting money up front, it makes the politicians who are in office who get that contract look good, and then they're out the door by the time the consequences.
They get a big pile of money, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they left office with a balanced budget. It's these other fools that followed them that couldn't do that. Richie Daley did that in Chicago, got a big chunk of change on, well, he didn't quite get out of office, but he was doing that with that.
Parking meters.
And tips.
Yeah.
That was his slush fund.
Yeah, and that is making the news a lot now. We had Carmel is dealing with the situation up there.
There was an interesting statement that a member of the city council up there in Carmel had an excellent critique. That he wrote of what is happening in Carmel.
Yeah, we have a redevelopment commission up there, which is like once again, a quasi-governmental entity without oversight, and they were borrowing a lot of money, but they're not with city. The city has a real good credit rating. They didn't have a good credit rating, and it's a long story. But as a result, the taxpayers may be on the hook for several $1 million up there in Carmel.
And it's like having a buddy move in and sleep on your couch at home, only he's got your credit card and can use your phone and computer too at the same time, and you don't know what he's doing while you're at work. And what happened in Carmel was they built this beautiful. I mean, they have this
gorgeous.
It's like the Palladium is an opera theater palace.
Right.
And they started out with a price tag of,
I can't remember the number, but it kept going up
and up
and up
and up
and
up again.
There was, and I believe the mayor promised that there wouldn't be any property taxes or any property taxes used to operate it. Go into the operating account. It would only be used to build it. Then later on, he said, "No, I just said." Then he reversed that. He said,
"And it went up."
Now the property taxes are used to actually fund the operations, and that's one thing. If you use property taxes to fund the building of something, then it's built and that's it. That's one thing. It's another thing when you build something that's not making enough money. Every year you got to pump property taxes into it.
But it looks really good.
And people in Carmel like things that look good. I think there's going to be a price to be paid for that.
And the whole thing is also, when will the Palladium, when will you get a majority on a town council up there and a mayor who decide to privatize it and sell it? That's going to be a few years, but
it would have to be. Have to see how they'd structure the contract, because it's certainly not close to making money.
Well, I know, but the whole thing is, and this gets to the whole idea of privatizing the way that it's done Hoosier style. If they don't have to pay any money to have the thing built,
well, that's true,
and they just pay you some money that sounds like good money up front, and then they charge a whole bunch for whatever it is that the operations are, then that's kind of like what we've gotten here.
Yeah, but there have been aspects of privatization in Carmel where they have, I can't remember how much. I believe they have more money going into these TIF districts and the redevelopment commission running the TIF districts than like in the city budget. I mean, they taken off so much money out of the city budget that they're almost operating as a city themselves.
Yeah, and a TIF is
Tax increment financing tool. And the idea is you build, say you're going to build a building, and it's going to raise the property taxes. You use the property taxes, you float bonds, you use the property tax increase, expected property tax increase, to pay for that development. The problem is it doesn't always generate enough income, and then you have to actually, instead of just using the increase in the property taxes, it can go below that. And I wish Pat Andrews was here. She could explain it better than I could. But what it does is it takes away from the property tax base eventually, and you have less money for basic services like police, fire, libraries, parks, those sort of things.
But the developers who have done the projects on that TIF, and it's a specific area zoned off. It might be like a 4-block area, and that's a TIF. There's a TIF that they've tried to create on Massachusetts Avenue.
Right.
And there are a couple of excellent bloggers, Matt Stone and Gary Welsh, did works on those, on the Push Mass Ave or something this week.
It was...
That's Indie Student and...
Advance Indiana.
Yeah, those are the blogs. Indie Student and Advance Indiana have excellent pieces on it.
There was a outfit that was started called Grow Mass Avenue. Massachusetts Avenue has a business entity, sort of like a Broad Ripple Village Association.
Yeah, and Massachusetts Avenue runs like northeast from the Circle downtown, well, near the Circle downtown, about 8 blocks, 9 blocks.
Right.
And it used to be kind of like a rotting, decrepit section of the
city. It was
city.
a nice area, then it got the bad area, now it's coming back.
Yeah, and so, like when we were in law school, it was not really a nice area at all.
No.
And maybe at the foot, but now it's really, really developed.
Right. And what happened is they've got a business association, but apparently they decided that some people there decided they need to have another entity to promote the expansion of the TIF that would help subsidize more, with our tax dollars, more property tax development, or more development in that area. It turns out that the person who started this group, she's a Democratic activist to show how Republicans and Democrats work together in the city. Her husband works for a brokerage firm that stands to get millions of dollars off of negotiating the deals. And so obviously people are the bloggers were saying, well, wait a second, she started it, she's a Democratic activist, her husband stands to make millions from this. Ballard is pushing it, he's a Republican.
Ballard's the mayor. And none of the business people in the area really...
Oh, I'm sure there are some that favor, especially those in that immediate area. I don't know what that is.
Neither do I.
Anyway, but so there's some that favor, but there's some that don't care. And some of these people, too, have put their own money into it and developed it. And now these new people come in, and they're going to get government subsidies, basically, to do stuff they finance on their own. And
in the long run, we have another TIF.
Yeah, right. The mayor's pushing for that. It hasn't happened yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen. Now, there has been pointed out, I think it's been published now, but I don't know if it's true, that there is talk of him trading his support for the domestic partnership ordinance for a vote for the TIF. I don't know if you've heard that, but I've heard that rumor. It's only a rumor. But we don't normally deal with rumors. Yeah, we do.
Everybody does. Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, that gets into the whole area of TIFs, which is that's something that's a very complex thing of which I only know that Chicago's had bad experience with TIF. And again, another lesson learned in Illinois that we haven't seen.
That we haven't. And what it is, it takes a lot of money out of the general fund and puts it under control of Metropolitan Development Commission, other quasi-governmental entities that is outside that really is more controlled by the mayor. The council doesn't have control of the money once it goes into these TIF districts.
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt you on that. I brought that up. What about they're wanting to do this with the city-county building. Can't the city-county council say no?
I think actually, the current state of the law is I don't think they could. I think they would have to pass I don't know. That's a good question. In fact, I think we asked our guests last weekend. Even people on the council aren't quite sure where their authority ends and the mayor's starts.
Yeah, but the whole concept of this country was, in terms of the governmental structures, we had checks and balances, some would argue, between two branches, as the Constitution was conceived, actually three branches. You have the executive, so that'd be the mayor, on the city level, the legislative, which would be the city-county council, on the national level it's Congress, and the judicial level, and the courts. Here you have an action presumably being taken by the mayor that would sell one of the chief public-owned assets.
Well, there is in the law a provision that says if you sell an asset over $50,000, I believe it is, you got to have an appraisal and go through this whole process.
But if you lease it,
it may not necessarily have to be followed. I don't know. Actually, I think it might cover the lease too. But here you're talking about. I can't speculate. I don't know where the line is. I do this every day, and I still don't know exactly where the power. And I've asked council members to say, "Do you have any say over that? Do you have any say over the Broad Ripple parking garage?" And they're like, "I don't think so."
And the Broad Ripple parking garage, essentially, the city is building a parking garage for a private developer.
Right. They're building, putting $6.35 million into it. They've said, it's going to cost $15 million, but if you look at estimates, most of the estimates are typically these garages are like $7 million. And we're building it, and we're giving it to a partnership headed by Keystone Development, and they will get ownership of the building, and they will get all the parking revenue off the building, and they'll have commercial space in the building and get all the rent on that too.
And living here in Broad Ripple, I can tell you that come on, buddy. I can tell you that they've located the parking garage at one of the worst places for a parking garage. It's an intersection of 5 streets, and there's a bridge there. It's just horribly congested.
Right.
And so for parking garage to be located there, we're just getting all sorts of...
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a spy plane, Mark.
No.
Do you live next to the airport?
No. That's just a chopper. Paul,
good show.
We started out this morning. We
had a guest, a squirrel. We've never had a non-human guest before.
That's true. We were going to talk about some of the polling, but
we'll have to save that for next week.
We'll save that for next week. Yeah, if you have any questions about the Indiana lottery being privatized, or you have objections to it, and I think everybody should, let your state legislator know, your state representative or your state senator. Write the governor, although he probably doesn't give a damn because he's going to be making money off of Purdue University.
I should say write the new governors coming in, or the gubernatorial candidates.
Let the candidates know. Mike Pence is running for the Republican Party, and John Gregg is running for the Democratic Party, and Rupert Bonham is running for the Libertarian Party. Rupert's had more contact with people at State Fair this week than in the last 2 weeks than I think any of the other candidates has had.
Right.
So, thanks for watching Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
I'm Paul Ogden.
We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Protesters, a new surge of morale.